Hey there and welcome to the video. So in this one I'm going to be talking about the AirPods in a very long-term review. I've had these for about 3 years now, and in this video I wanted to talk about how they've been over that 3 years, but more importantly, if you get these and you're making an investment, how well they last in terms of like battery life and their quality of audio and any other little tinkering things in the background. So let's find out how these perform after 3 years. So if you know anything about AirPods, or if you ever look on any of the Apple forums or any of the Reddit forums to Apple, you'll always find loads of complaints about these in terms of their battery life. You'll hear all sorts of different horror stories about how well they hold up over time. And like I said, in this video, I just want to address a few of those things, but talk about my experience with these. And first things first is the sound quality. Now, I am absolutely by no means an audiophile. When it comes to music or any things like podcasts or audiobooks, I just like to be able to listen to something conveniently. And these do a very good job. When they first went on sale and I picked them up, I was, I guess, skeptical. I just figured they'd be like the normal AirPods rather than anything better, but they blew my expectations away, and actually they performed so much better than I ever expected them to. And to be honest, I think they sound better now than when I originally got them. Like I said, they're not going to blow anybody away when it comes to audio quality. They're just good. You know, they're better than average, they're good little headphones, and yeah, that's pretty much it. When I listen to audiobooks, everything sounds clear, the narration's always really good. When I listen to music, it's pretty good. There's no distortion, there's no dropouts or anything like that. But for me, I'm just the bog standard user who likes decent quality audio, but isn't looking for anything absolutely phenomenal. If you are the kind of person who's looking for absolutely killer audio quality, these probably aren't going to do it. They're more of a convenience thing than anything else. The thing that drew me to these originally was the convenience factor and the fact that you'd be able to automatically switch between different devices very easily. One thing I always hated about Bluetooth headphones was the fact you'd have to get them out, put them into pairing mode, search for them, find them, and even after you'd done that once, there were so many times they would just drop off the radar and just not reconnect when you use your phone or different devices, and it was just an absolute pain. I like to say that these do a really good job. Device switching, in my experience over 3 years, has never been particularly great, and in fact I found that just standard Bluetooth headphones tends to be a little bit easier because you literally put them into pairing mode and then you search from the device that you want to use them with. With the AirPods, they're hit and miss. Sometimes you open them up and they connect to the device that you want to use it for. So if I'm using my iPad, maybe it will just connect to these. Maybe I need to go into settings and search for them. Maybe it just won't do it at all unless I put them back into the pod, close it and go from there. It's really hit and miss. And one thing that's really hit and miss actually is the pairing with the iPhone. So even if I don't switch them to another device at any stage, the amount of times that I'll take these out, kind of pop open the lid and pop one of the AirPods in, and it doesn't do anything, and then I search on the iPhone and I can't find it, so I have to put it back into its pod and then take it out of its pod and then it connects to the iPhone. It's not necessarily a seamless experience, and it's definitely one that's gotten worse over time. So now that I'm further along in this journey, these have gotten a lot less reliable in terms of connectivity. If I take them both out and use both AirPods at the same time, it does tend to be a little bit better at detecting them, but I would say about 50% of the time, if I take one pod out, I then have to put it back into it so my iPhone will detect it. Frustrating, and I've read a lot about it, and it seems that a lot of other people have similar sort of issues as well. So when it works exceptionally well. They are very convenient. Popping them back into the pod to pair them isn't necessarily a big deal, but it's just a bit of a pain and something worth bearing in mind. For me, one of the big things about this is being able to use one of the AirPods at a single time. So I tend to use one at a time, listen to an audiobook or something like that, do some housework, do some work around the house, and as it starts to run out of charge, I pop the other one in. Now, you're probably wondering how well these do after 3 years. Now, I've read a lot of horror stories about after 2 to 3 years, these things tend to only last about 10 minutes. For me, it's about 45 minutes. So if I use one at a time, I get about 45 minutes. But because of the way they're set up, I listen to an audiobook using one of them and then pop it back into the pod and charge it, and then take the other one out. So it pretty much get unlimited battery. The pod itself, I've never run out of battery on it. It's just always got charge because I pop it on charge as and when I need to, but it's never run out. So again, capacity on this thing is really good. But to get an understanding of how these things are over time, I guess you need to understand how I listen to them. I would say that I listen to them every other day, and it's not for a huge amount of time. It tends to be an hour max. So take it with a grain of salt as to how well your battery life will last. If you're somebody who's going to be using these all of the time and you're going to be listening to them for hours at a time, then yeah, these things are going to run down exceptionally quickly. I found that mine dropped below an hour after about 2 years. So considering I was only ever listening to pretty much one at a time and then switching them back and forth, that's pretty disappointing. Going back to my previous point, if you're somebody who's listening to a lot of music at relatively high volumes, bearing in mind I only listen to mine at about 50%, then these things are going to wear down very, very quickly. And I can absolutely believe some of the stories where after 12 to 18 months, these things are pretty much useless. And that kind of brings us on to the final thought of these. For me in my use case, 3 years is pretty good. They stay in my ears, they never fall out. The convenience factor is really good apart from those niggling little issues where I had to pop one back in to repair it. But apart from that, they do a really good job, and I'm sure that I'll get at least another year out of these. So for the price point, it's not too bad. But what does really annoy me is the fact that these batteries inside of it are non-replaceable. You can't just take the stem off and pop another battery onto it. And it absolutely feels like Apple could have done something differently on these things to be able to make them more recyclable, to be able to make sure that people could reuse them. Maybe from a consumer standpoint, they don't want people to just be able to buy a replacement battery and just keep using these, because then no one's going to upgrade their AirPods. So maybe from a business perspective, that makes a little bit of sense, but they hark on about the environment all the time. And these things are all going to end up in landfill, they're all going to end up in the bin, because you just can't do anything with them after a certain amount of time. And for each different use case, it's going to vary. Some of those horror stories say about 18 months before your battery life becomes pretty much useless. For people like me who don't use them all the time and only for short, sharp bursts, I'm going to get between 3 and 4 years. So from a consumer standpoint, that's not too bad for me. And the money is actually probably worth it, and it's a half decent value proposition. But environmentally, I absolutely hate these, and I probably wouldn't get another pair just because of that. So to sum up, after 3 years, these things have been exceptionally good. They have done conference calls with me. They have listened to numerous audiobooks. I've listened to a lot of music, and switching between different devices is really handy. Taking calls and everything on them, absolutely fantastic, and I really, really love it. They stay in my ears so well, it's like magic. I always expected them to fall out, but nope, they stay in there no matter how hard I shake my head from side to side, which is a ridiculous test, of course, but they stay and they work really well. Battery life obviously does degrade over time, and your use case will vary. The thing that is obviously worthwhile taking into consideration is there is absolutely nothing you can do. Once that battery life starts to run down, you're out of luck. You can't replace the battery. You can't suddenly just use a cable with these instead like you can do on some other higher end Bluetooth headphones. So your use case will vary and your mileage will vary as well. However, if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you have something like an Apple Watch and you want to be able to use some decent Bluetooth headphones, these things do a really good job. There are some niggling issues with connectivity. Sometimes it gets much better when an iOS update comes out. Sometimes it gets much worse when an iOS update comes out. So hopefully one day they will just fix the connectivity issues and we will have some seamless, very, very convenient headphones. And hopefully they will also do something in future AirPod updates where you can replace the battery, because that would be golden. So yeah, that's my thoughts after 3 years of ownership of these. And I didn't go too much into the audio quality purely because there are other videos out there with people who understand audio a lot better than I do. But I wanted to give you my perspective on how the tech inside of these and things like the battery life and experience holds up after that long-term usage, because that's something that you absolutely want to be considering when you are splashing out a relatively decent chunk of cash on this sort of headphone. There are far cheaper alternatives out there, and as I said, I've just never liked the pairing experience. It's all right when you're switching between different devices, but the convenience of these, especially for things like my Apple Watch, just absolutely blows those out of the water. But of course, people want to know about the battery life, and hopefully that's given you a better idea of how well these will last, depending, I guess, on your use case over 2 to 3 years of time. So thanks for watching this video, and if it's helped you, be sure to hit the subscribe button and come along for some more awesome content in the future. If you've got any questions about these, pop them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer those. But in the meantime, stay safe and we'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.